All right, welcome back to another episode of The Christian Sages. I heard Doug groan when I said that. Yeah, well, I'm very
Oh, I
dramatic.
thought my mic was off. My bad.
No. All right, I promise not to choke on my coffee tonight like I do every week, but I actually
Yeah,
can't make any promises.
yeah, you got to stop doing that.
I got to try. But I really can't drink. Either I dribble, like completely miss my mouth, only like part of the liquid gets in my mouth, or I choke. It's like there's no in between, like where I just drink normal. I don't think I'm in between in anything though.
Have you tried using a straw,
I'm not a big fan of straws, but yeah, I probably should. That would
especially
probably
with
be.
coffee?
Yeah, coffee and straws really don't mix. They don't mix at all. So last week we interviewed Will. I heard you got to listen to it, Doug.
Yeah, I thought it was great. Thought it was fun hearing Will
I know, I miss him.
talk again.
We haven't talked to
Used to
him.
see him every week.
I know. Crazy, right? I remember, we didn't actually talk about this, but I remember one night we were out, and I used to hang out when I was first divorced. I used to hang over there, and the kids would, when I didn't have the kids, and hang out in with him in Simplicity. And we were outside talking one night. It was probably like 2 in the morning. It's probably a Friday night because I don't remember having to work the next day. And we heard like this loud growl, like demonic growl coming from the roof. And I'm like, my head whipped around, and Will's just staring at me. And I'm like, you heard that, right? And he goes, of course I did. And I was like, well, good. I'm glad I'm not crazy. You know, we've had similar experiences as far as, demonic encounters where we know that the demonic is real. Of course, I wasn't a Satanist, but
Right.
from the opposite side, we were coming at this. But it's interesting to hear him talk about Satanism, in which we're going to talk about that tonight, Satanism. But it's interesting because I looked up and tried to do a search on occultic Satanism, and it's really impossible to find anything about the traditional Satanism. As a matter of fact, 99% of the YouTube videos I found, of the articles I found, were trying to actually disprove this view of Satanism that we kind of always grew up having, where there are witches and warlocks and um, human sacrifices and animal sacrifices and all of that kind of stuff. And it's almost like they're trying really hard to disprove that. Almost too
Yeah.
hard. Almost way too hard.
Yeah, I think we talked about how in the 80s it seemed,
Yeah.
and I guess the 90s a little bit too, there's almost this like hysteria about it.
Yeah. Well, there was. They actually called
And
it the demonic or the Satanist panic or something.
and usually on the other side of that there's this, because once you make everything extreme,
Yeah.
any weird thing becomes, it's kind of like in the Middle Ages,
Yeah.
any weird secret society type
Yeah.
was getting labeled, and once you make everything extreme it loses its meaning.
Yes, that's true.
So then on the other side of that it's kind of like, what's extreme,
Right. Right. Absolutely. It's like we so over extreme it that then we have to. It's almost like oh, we've extremed it so much that now it loses any kind of impact, to where even if it has real impact, we've become desensitized to it.
Right.
It's like now it's lessened it. It's almost like what I said the other day. In the 80s, it seemed like there was a demon around every corner. Now it just seems like there's no demons. Even in the church, it's like we're afraid to talk about it. We're afraid to talk about demonic possession. We're afraid to talk about demonic oppression, or that there even is a devil. It's almost like it's a taboo now. Like, oh, we don't want to scare people away and talk about the devil, because back in the 80s we were all about the devil. And then we
Right.
realized that we were getting way too extreme. Well, honestly, there is no such thing as too extreme. I mean, he's the devil.
Right. And
You know?
really what we should be doing is taking the biblical worldview, because that's our faith, that's our
Yeah.
belief.
Yep.
And what we do a lot of times, we let culture sort of dictate
It's true.
how we think and how we approach certain things.
It's true.
Just like the extremist thing. I mean, we're scared of being labeled extreme by
Right.
the extremist.
Yeah.
They're pointing at us who are really not that extreme,
That's right.
but we're the crazy right-wing extreme Christians who,
Right.
and it's like, actually, no, we're pretty normal.
Because we're evangelical. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? We're extreme because we actually believe it. And really, that's what it comes down to, is that we're extreme to them because we actually believe that what the that what the Bible says is true, and so we put it
Right.
into practice. So we're extreme. It's why I've always said that people don't really understand Islam. They call people who practice Islam extremist, but they simply believe what the Quran says. I mean that's
Right.
and they put it into practice, and they're considered extremists because they actually allow what the Quran says to dictate what they believe and how they're going to act.
Right.
So, and I think that's we're the same as Christians. If you're a Christian and you actually allow Christianity to dictate how you're going to act, you're considered an extremist now.
Right.
Oh, you don't have sex outside of marriage because the Bible says that. Well, that's just extreme.
Yeah, it's the 21st century.
Yeah,
Come on
you
now.
should. That's just old fashioned. There's no such thing as sin. It wasn't coffee though; it was my own spit.
Uh,
Oh
don't
my
you get a
god,
straw, man?
that was my own spit. But anyway, that's kind of the age-old problem with people who. I just pulled myself. Do you
Yeah,
practice
you.
something religious? Yeah, I disappeared there because I pulled my mic out. Do you practice something religiously? Is it just something you do in a religious way, where okay, this is what my parents did. I do the ritualistic forms. I kind of identify as this, or do you believe it? And then if you believe something, it dictates how you're going to live your life. It dictates your worldview and how you live your life.
I
So
mean, if you really, yeah, if you really believe something, like if you, you take, if somebody tells you that a boulder's coming down a mountain and you have a house on a
right,
mountain or whatever, you're not just going to sit there and say, if you believe it, you're not going to sit there in your home and just say, well, when it hits, we'll see how much damage it does.
yeah,
No, you're gonna go out and watch out. You're gonna get your
that's right,
family out of there. You're gonna get them safe. If you believe it, you will obey, and that's kind of like
right, right.
Christianity. If you believe in Christ, He is the Lord. There's no such thing as Jesus Christ as your Savior, but not as your Lord.
Yes,
It's because that's His message, not
yeah,
because that's what I'm preaching.
that's right.
It's because that's His message.
Absolutely. No, it's absolutely true, and it determines what you're going to believe. It determines your life and how you're going to act, and that's why I've always said, Muslims that actually practice that are considered extremist because the Quran actually tells you to do these things. Oh well, no, it doesn't really. The people that don't actually believe it, and it's a religious, it's kind of like what we had talked about. There's different kinds of Satanism. There's theistic Satanism or spiritual Satanism, and then there's the Church of Satan,
Right.
which is more of a what is it? Typological Satanism. There's a better
Yeah,
term.
that's Anton LaVey's
Yes,
type of
absolutely.
Satanism.
Anton LaVey, and then the guy who founded the Satanic Temple,
Now that
Lucian
was back in
Greaves.
right 2013, so that was
Yes.
pretty recent.
Yeah, and he just really founded that because he believed that Christianity, which is insane, really, because they don't get they actually get treated worse than every other religion. It got a special attention from the government, and more so than other religions. And
Yeah,
honestly, go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, it's really more of a political thing
It
than
is.
anything.
It absolutely is.
Everything I read about the Temple of Satan is more of a sort of an angry,
It is.
sort of leftist attack.
It's they are an extreme. They're extreme left wing. That's what they are. They're an extreme left wing organization that believes religious freedom should be for any kind of religion, and that really religion in itself is oppressive and tyrannical. So even though they call themselves a religion, they actually believe in. They don't really believe in religion, which is kind of funny because their
Yeah,
religious ideology is that you can pretty much do whatever you want, that whatever makes you happy you can do, including killing children if you because as far as abortion, because they actually fight for abortion rights, because they don't believe that they believe you should have the right to kill your baby in your womb if you want to. So they fight for any kind of extreme left wing ideology. They believe it. That
right.
extreme libertarianism to the left side, where libertarianism is like right side. This is the extreme libertarianism in the left side, almost anarchist, to be honest with you. They're not
Yeah,
anarchists, but they're very close.
yeah, that's really what they are moving towards.
Yeah,
But when you look at it, you're like, what are you? And they say a Satanist. It's like, oh, okay,
but they don't believe in Satan.
I got you.
See, that's the funny thing. The Satanic Temple does not believe in Satanism or any super spiritual being. Even the main leader there said that if you actually believe that, I'm not sure if it was him or if it was the other guy, the one that founded the Church of Satan, but one of them had said if you actually believe in a supernatural being like Satan or God, you're probably insane. Because it's more about reason. And so honestly, they fall really close. It's almost like the next level from humanism and from reasonism and the worship of science, and it's that next evolution from that, which is
Right.
There is no such thing as even laws and government, because how
It's
can you tell me what to do because it's a man-made thing?
it's really rebellion for the sake of rebellion.
It is.
I mean, if you think about it, what they worship is rebellion.
Yeah.
Rebellion against whatever powers that be, whatever laws that be.
That's right.
Rebel against.
Yeah, they were founded. The Satanic Temple was founded in 2013, and on April 25th, 2019, the temple announced it had been granted tax-exempt status, and it's now recognized as an actual church. So there's
That's
really
so weird.
Yeah, I mean, isn't it crazy? But they're not really. See, that's the thing. This is not Satanism, and so this is them using the name of Satan in order to gain attention, in order to be counter Christianity. That's really why why they choose the Satanic Temple, is because they know that they're going to get attention from the disenfranchised people that tend to lean toward the emos and those types of people that lean towards that kind of heavy metal and Wiccanism, and so they're going to get them to kind of come in and see what they're all about. So they're going for. They even said that they're going for the disenfranchised. They're the group. They're a group for the people that are rejected by other religions, pretty much, and that they come to this religion because this is a religion of freedom. So in other words, there really is no basic doctrine per se. There is, but there isn't. Which is kind of it's more like do whatever you really it's do whatever you kind of want to do, feel good about yourself. They believe in the power of mythology, art, and ritual to help you be informed about daily life and help you live your best life. And so they're very they're very social justice warriors. They're big into that kind of stuff. They're out there protesting. Mainly, it's about religious freedom and trying to get Christianity, separation of church and state is their big thing, where they don't want the government involved in church, in any kind of religion, and they want religion completely out of any kind of government at all. So there should be no mention of Christianity. Like they were against the Ten Commandments in Arkansas, and they raised $20,000 to commission a statue of Baphomet, and so that it would be placed near the Ten Commandments in Arkansas in order to. It didn't actually get put there, as far as I understand, but that was their big protest to the Ten Commandments because, well, that's separation of church and state, so the Ten Commandments shouldn't be there.
And it's really I mean, they really have a meaningless fight, but at the same time, there is a lot of meaning as far as destruction, because we had talked about religious liberty and how Christianity is sort of the tree that provides for all others, and there can't be just this so you have this cauldron of a good smelling soup, right? So you can't just throw anything into this soup of religious liberty, and you just dip poison into it, and it still work.
Yeah.
So there has to be something like, okay, you want to tear the Ten Commandments out and you want to put up a statue of some wicked whatever it is they wanted to put out there.
Well, yeah, because they don't actually believe in the God. They don't believe in the deity Bahamut. They only wanted to do that as a direct affront to say, well, if Christians could put the Ten Commandments up, we're going to put a devil up.
Right. Yeah. And then, to me, that's not even an argument that should be entertained at all. But
it's leaning that way. Now. You're seeing a lot more of it. As a matter of fact, there was a big thing recently. Netflix had done, I just found this out because I don't really watch it, but Netflix had done a live-action adult version of Sabrina the Teenage Witch. And there was apparently a big stink over that because there was statues, satanic statues of the devil and pentagrams and stuff from the Satanic Church all through the show because she's a witch. So they actually approached it as she's a real witch. It was darker, it was more adult, and there were a lot of people that complained about it because you're seeing this subtle interjection back when people were complaining about, oh, Harry Potter. Well, it's a subtle desensitization to magic, to Wiccan ideologies, to the occult, and you're beginning to see that not just the New Age. We're going to talk about that next week, but not just the New Age ideas that are creeping into stuff, but the occult and
Right.
and
Right.
demon worship, which
Right.
as we go, because you're going to see then there's also the Church of Satan, which is another religious organization that is atheistic. They don't believe in Satan. They were founded April 30th, 1966 by Anton LaVey. He's the high priest of the church until 1997 when he died. It was taken over in 2001 by Peter Gilmore. He was sent, made the high priest, and they moved their headquarters. Originally, it was in the Black House at the Black House in San Francisco, California, and now it's moved to Hell's Kitchen, Manhattan, in New York City. And they don't believe in the devil either. They don't believe in the Christian notions nor the Islamic notions of Satan. They're skeptical
It should
atheists.
be a requirement if you call yourself a Satanist, you have to believe in Satan.
They're just using Satan.
I would make that a law.
But see, here's the thing. We're talking about Satanism, but these people aren't Satanists. And see, that's the reality of it. They're just It's like saying they're almost like a cult of Satanism. Because it's kind of like Christianity, and the definition of a cult is taking Christian ideologies and fashioning them to promote a completely different ideology. And they're using, like Christian Science, where she said, okay, I'm going to take and use the word Christian because she wanted to have Christians come see what she was about because she knew she would garnish attention, but she really is not Christian, nor is it based on Christian doctrine. And this is kind of the same thing. It has nothing to do with Satan, but they're using
Right.
the word Satan to gain a certain amount of people who would be attracted to that. And
Yeah.
and it's really not about Satan. It's just this is their way of saying we're not Christians in essence. But really they're not Satanists. So they're technically a cult of Satanism, which I think is kind of funny.
It is. Yeah.
But it's interesting, and they're still around, but they're not really as big as they were in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Their formation. They have a bunch of different rituals, which are satanic based, but really they don't believe in Satan, so it's mainly just rituals, to give kind of people to do something and to say, hey, look, we're doing something.
And we'll get more into this when we talk about the New Age, but
Yeah.
because it's sort of a broad umbrella that covers a lot of these terms we're talking about. But a lot of this movement towards this paganism,
Yeah.
which is really pulling up a bunch of old stuff that has been practiced in the past, which is basically
Yeah.
the cult, secret, hidden, forbidden arts, seeking spiritual knowledge and stuff like that. All of this is really shaping sort of the landscape in America. It seems silly, right, when you talk
It
about
does.
this group or that group, but then you look at it and you see a lot of connections with ufology and New Age and other occultic things and Satanists. But it reminds me of what you and I talked about the other day when we were talking about the Antichrist, who will come and be energized by power.
Yes.
Not just powers, but I was also reading how capabilities that Satan will produce false signs like he did in Exodus.
Absolutely.
In Second Thessalonians 2:9, there will be false wonders, false signs. Matthew 24, Mark 13 reminds us there will be false Christ, false prophets who will produce great signs and wonders.
Absolutely.
Then the beast in Revelation 13, there will be works, miraculous signs, calling down fire from heaven.
Yep.
And demonic spirits will proceed from the mouth of the dragon, performing signs in Revelation 16. So when you look at all this stuff with the signs, the wonders, the different things that are going to be happening towards the end, it's like we could have argued maybe 20 years ago, like who would
Yeah,
believe all that stuff? Who would actually chase after this? But now we're seeing a large group of people, not just
that's right.
who, under this
Yeah.
really new age neo-pagan umbrella that are that are sort of taken over,
Yes, that's
the
right.
American culture. Um,
Absolutely. It's absolutely taken over the American culture. And it wasn't like it's new. This started in the early 90s and slowly made their it started with honestly, I believe the satanic panic of the 80s. It led into this because it caused us to become afraid to attack anything satanic. And so,
yeah,
because it was like, oh, it's like, oh, we're making a big deal out of. I mean, they're making a big deal. Another one that kind of fell into this was like the Interview with the Vampire, and Anne Rice was balked. Oh, she's a Satanist.
right,
She's a witch. Nobody. You know what I'm saying? It was like we were looking everywhere. We made such a big deal out of everything that we made fools of ourselves to some degree. And then it was like,
right,
oh, now we're afraid to talk about it because we don't want to look stupid, or because we don't want to
right,
look extreme. But I think that was kind of part of the enemy's plan,
yeah,
so
yeah,
that he can
definitely,
slowly work his way in and desensitize people and say, "Oh, it's not as bad as the Christians are making it out to be. It's not really like that." Just like if you do a search, this is what you're finding. Oh, Satanism really isn't that bad. As a matter of fact, even on the Wikipedia page, they went out to make it a point to say that in 2007, some kid. Sent a Satanist kid in Satanism sent an email to High Priest Gilmore stating he wanted to kill in the name of the Lord, unholy Lord Satan, and he reported him to the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Like they want to make it a point to let you know that we don't believe in killing people, that we're not like everybody tells. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah, yeah,
it's crazy how much effort they go to. It's kind of like, oh, Islam doesn't really believe that. You can't actually
right,
say what the Quran believes because no, that doesn't really believe that. That's what extremists believe about it. Well, but that's
right,
what it says. You know what I'm saying? It's like, but no, it's just what extremists believe. It's like they go out of their way to say, oh, it doesn't really happen that way. That's really not
right,
because they want you to become desensitized to it. Now, again, the Church of Satan and the Satanic Temple, they're cults of Satanism. Let's just be honest. They're like the Jehovah's Witness and the Mormonism of Satanism.
right,
They're like that's what they really are. They're
yeah,
just they're just these are just atheistic beliefs, atheistic systems that were created by atheist people like Charles Manson, who more along the lines with like Wiccan, but that believe in this weird New Age ideology that really, and they've created a religious idea around it, and they manipulate people because they go after the disenfranchised, which is what Satanism has always gone after, the disenfranchised.
right,
That's where they're going after people that are not. Oh, well, you're rejected by Christianity. Come be part of our group. Come be
right,
part of
right.
who we are.
Well, yeah, I mean, and that's really what Satanism is really rebellion. Even the ones that
Absolutely.
believe there's a real Satan and not just a symbol. Um, I think even Anton LaVey, who didn't believe in Satan until he died, and I think he was having some experience where he was very scared.
Yeah.
And anyway, but
That's
whether or not
true.
they believe in Satan or not, their ideas are all about rebellion. Anton LaVey said something like, "Whatever Christianity tells you not to do, I say indulge."
Yeah,
That was
exactly.
his whole thing. That was his big
Absolutely.
thing. Is like indulge in whatever your passions
Right.
want. And it's
Right.
really
Exactly.
humanistic, really. But the
Well,
whole
that's what you
idea
see.
is
That's
is
the new age,
rebellion.
right? That's that new age ideology that's crept into become a big part of the worldview now, and particularly in America, the idea of tolerance. Well, you just let people do whatever they want to do as long as they're not hurting you. And if you say
Yeah.
that you don't agree with it, well, then you're a hate monger and a bigot. Well, that's exactly what they believe. Well, just
Right.
if you want to be gay, well, be gay. If you want to, just like we don't promote killing people, but realistically speaking, that is the end result of that ideology. Is if I
Right.
feel that's what Natural Born Killers, the movie, was about. If you're telling me that there is no that there is no real right or wrong, it's all made up by man's doctrine or by religious ideologies, but there really is no right or wrong. There's really just whatever my desires tell me. Well, if my desires tell me to kill people, who are you to tell me I can't?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That is the eventual end of this idea. Anarchy is also it is the eventual end of this train of thought. It will always lead there. There is no other way for it to lead because it will well, that's extreme. Yeah, but that's the ideas that you're promoting. How can, it will eventually lead to that kind of extremity. So you're going to get people that are going to kill and murder in the name of this ideology, which Charles Manson, even the Son of Sam, and others have done. And you're like, oh, they're horrible and they're serial killers and they're evil. They are, but it is an extreme view of this doctrinal idea that you're coming out with.
Right, and really, the thing is it's they dip their hands. They actually like Friedrich Nietzsche a lot, but they do what Nietzsche even got mad about with atheists, is they dip their hands into the Christian worldview to determine, well, we don't like that. Well, why don't you like it?
Yeah.
Well, we don't like this. We don't feel it's just. Don't tell us what to do with our body. Stuff like that.
Exactly. Don't tell me what to do.
They have no basis for telling us that. It's like, well, what are you referring to? Right. Well, my reason. It's like, well, my reason says that I can say this. It's circular reasoning.
Oh, it's absolutely circular reasoning. It's an extreme left. That's the extreme left's ideology. And you're beginning to see that the mainstream ideology that's being promoted by Hollywood, by the mainstream media, by the education system to some degree, is this extreme left view of, well, everybody can just do whatever they want as long as you're not hurting anybody. That there is no moral center. That morality is just created by man or created by religion, which is oppressive. So we need to get rid of it. And that is exactly what Satanism, these two versions of Satanism, are promoting. That's exactly.
And our religious liberty stew now stinks really bad.
It does. Which, like my dad said, you really can't have religious liberty, though, without allowing all religions to be free within reason. So I think, you can't. It is hard. It is a hard question. Because I can't say only certain religions are allowed to be free and then have religious freedom. So
the way I see it is
one step to any religion being oppressed, if you take that away.
Yeah, I mean the best thing would what Christianity allowed. Really, Christianity, the way I look at it, is Christianity tolerated other religions. So the other religions came in. And you can practice. We're not going to kill you. We're not going to,
exactly.
But at the same time, don't come into our cafeteria and say you are no longer allowed to serve pork.
Right.
Get out of here with that. And that's what we've sort of acquiesced towards.
Right. Oh yeah. Well, because Christianity is what ideology was founded on. So they have to attack that in order to destroy the foundation of America. And when they destroy the foundation of America, then they can change it to suit their needs, which is what they've been trying to do for the last 20 years, or 30 years. And that's what liberalism is trying to do right now. We need to rewrite the Constitution. We need to change the laws. We need to, because they're archaic and based on Christian religious moralism. And we need to get rid of that because Christian moralism is outdated. You know what I'm saying? So if they can attack Christian moralism, then they attack the foundation of America, then they can change America to suit their needs. That's their attempt. And again, we do have a system in place where you can amend the Constitution, but it has to be agreed upon, and that's not ever going to work. So they have to try and demonize things that they don't agree with so that in front of people, because they have no argument against them. And so they've demonized Christianity. They demonized the founding fathers. They demonize the founding of America by only wanting to center on, Western expansion. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Everything about America is bad because of Western expansion. It's like, the Native Americans. All right, well, then everybody anybody who's English is bad because of what they did to the native peoples in Great Britain. You know what I'm saying? All Australians are horrible because of what they did to the Inuits there. Not Inuits, but Aboriginals. Everybody's horrible. The Japanese are terrible. Well, not really, because the Japanese apparently were the first people there.
Well, what they did to the Chinese was
what they did to
terrible.
the Chinese. But that was in their view, I got to an argument with my nephew on this. In their view, one of the reasons why World War II was fought on their part was because they believed they were just doing what the rest of us were doing. Well, you went into the Philippines and did it. Why can't we go into Korea and China and do it? That doesn't make any sense. You're coming in here and telling us we can't do it, but then again, that's what you guys are doing. And to some degree, they do have a point. But
that all started they began building up their military in like the late 19th century.
Yeah.
When we went on I forgot what date and who it was exactly. But anyway,
Yeah, we went into their
the,
harbor because we wanted to trade with them, and they wouldn't listen
right
to us. So we brought warships into the harbor, and pretty much said, we're showing you our power, and you are going to trade with us whether you like it or not."
there, yeah, that's what happened. But and that ticked them off,
Oh yeah,
understandably.
yeah. And then they're like, "All right, well, we accept that this is the way the world is. Well, we want to be a part of that too. We want to be we're an empire." And they went from being these feudal type country to to the emperor, and we're the empire, and so they wanted to be imperialistic the way the rest of us were. Well, if you
They
can conquer other countries, so can I. But they didn't realize that they were a couple of, like, 20 years too late, because after World War I, everybody agreed we weren't going to do that anymore to some degree.
yeah. Well, yeah, they already had that warrior ethic.
They
You know,
did.
their
Yeah,
people, which
they did.
anyway, one thing you mentioned, I wanted to point out too what Will said
Yeah.
back to singling
Satanism.
people out,
Yeah.
or people who are angry or drawn in to hate and anger.
Yeah.
They're angry at their parents, and Satanists kind of pull them in.
Yep.
I thought it was a great point he made about make sure nobody's singled out in the
Yes.
congregation.
That's right.
Like even in your own church,
Yeah.
people can be singled out, and that. But anywhere we are as Christians, we should be looking at who is the one that is not included, who is the one that is
True.
not, who's eating lunch alone, you know.
Absolutely true.
Because when
Absolutely
you
true.
look at the gospel message, that's exactly what happened with us. We were
Yeah.
the outsiders. We were brought in. It wasn't because we were good. It was because we were not good. Christ came, saved us, and brought us
Yeah.
in.
Yeah.
But I thought that was a good point he made.
No, it's true, and that is something that all cults kind of play on, and that is that these people that have kind of been isolated, and that isn't that what the Bible talks about Satan, that he's a wolf. He
Yeah.
comes in and he isolates the sheep. That's why the Bible talks about us as sheep, because wolves try to isolate the sheep from the pack, because as a pack we can protect each other, but when we're isolated we can't. And that's what Satanism does, is it goes after the isolated. That's what most cults do. And Satanism in its whole is no different than any other kind of cult. It's just anti-Christian, but it's anti-Christian on purpose, because they're trying to appeal to people that don't accept, that they feel like Christianity doesn't accept them, like homosexuals, or people that they're like, "Oh, well, Christians won't accept me as a homosexual. If they do accept me, they try to change me." Where Satanism will accept you as homosexual, who cares? You can come be a homosexual here in Satanism, because there is no moral standing here, because there's no morality here. There's no moral code here. If you want to be gay, go ahead, be gay. You know what I'm saying? That
Right.
it's there. That's the way they believe. Now, obviously, again, they want to let you know we don't promote killing people, but there is a sect of the theistic Satanists, the theistic Satanists. They're different, because they are actually people who believe in the Judeo-Christian Satan, which by definition then believe in there being a god, or some version of demonic power that is in the same way a representation of Satan, and they worship these deities. Wiccans fall under that. Celts, pagans, druids, any ancient religion, or what can be considered ancient religion, or that is being perpetuated again now. These old school religions, even the worship of Norse gods, people still start to have that's kind of made a resurgence. The worship of Norse gods.
It's interesting because, like Wiccan, it really draws from that. But they not only is it neo-paganism, it also includes the worship of nature. Which, when you think about all these gods, that's
right.
essentially what they're doing, is they're worshiping nature.
Absolutely, and they're sex cults. Sex is usually very much involved. Drugs are very much involved. Fulfilling natural desires are very much involved. Orgies are a part of this, which they were back in the olden days.
Yeah.
It was, worshiping demons. Almost all demonic beliefs, even right back to the time of the Hebrews, even the Greeks, even I'm sure the Romans, even the Egyptians, I'm sure had gods, where having sex in the temple was part of that worship.
Right.
Where that literally their priestesses were prostitutes, because you came and you paid to sleep with them, and that was worshiping this god. Was in the almost every worship of demons, which is it's a worship of demons, worship of
Well,
other beings, involves something that is it is opposite moral wise to Christianity. It's
well,
always
when you
excess
think
and extreme.
about, I mean, when you think about, we don't understand a lot of things like Bell worship, for
Right.
example. Um, but when you take into account, like it, Jezebel, for example, Ahab during that day, um, why would they be wavering between two opinions or
Right.
limping between two opinions, as Elijah said? Well, we don't think about this. That well, Bell worship it had the royal sanction.
Right.
It had the appeal of tradition, of history. There was things that went on there. There was sort of a
Right.
community. Like you said, there was sex. There was, they would drink and they would do orgies.
Yeah.
So there was all this going on.
Yes.
Um, so there was a lot of appeal to it when it was like,
Absolutely.
well, when I pray to Yahweh, I don't get what I want, but this gives me everything I want,
Yeah.
right? If anything, but
Oh, absolutely. And it's always about that. I mean, it all comes down to Christians bad because they tell you you can't do what you want to do. You want to have sex with whoever you want to have sex with. You want to have an orgy, have an orgy. You want to get drunk. You want to, you want to do drugs. You want to do all of these things that we know are wrong. Just do them. That Wiccans are a little different, even though they involve sex and they involve a lot of that stuff. It's more of Wiccanism is more of like Druidist. I would look to me. It seems like Druids, like they're a descendant of Druids, pagans,
well,
Celts.
what Will was saying about the drug abuse. It's very true that the occult, but that's always been part of the occult historically. Is drug
Absolutely,
abuse is a huge part of the cult because it causes people to surrender their consciousness,
absolutely,
and it draws them in. Really, it's
absolutely.
like you said. I knew heroin would bring this one down,
Yeah,
and so you become a provider. You pull them in,
that's right.
and they surrender to you.
Absolutely. So we've got the Order of the Nine Angels, which is a Satan worshiping group that believes that Lucifer is a force in nature who is masculine, and then there's a female, or yeah, he's female, and Baphomet is a female, and they kind of
Oh yeah, I read that.
forces in nature. So there is the really there is a satanic Bible, and I know Will talked about that there is actually as well a satanic Bible, not necessarily the one that Anton LaVey wrote, but there is an actual satanic Bible. They do believe in spells. They do believe. We had talked about this the other day. They do believe in witchcraft is a part of Satanism, and that was what Will had said. And when you're studying theistic Satanism, pretty much what they had said is it's separated into a bunch of different cabals. They're not necessarily fighting with each other, but it's almost like denominationalism in Christianity. Like there's a
Right.
bunch of groups that all kind of have their own views on this, but they all can kind of
Yeah.
be lumped into Satanism, which is really just the worship of demons or spirits of some kind, or the tapping into the power of these spirits. Like Wiccans might not say, well, we won't really worship these things, but they tap into their power and they call on them and they look at them as deities or ancient gods, and they all kind of fall bulk into that same kind of idea. And they're all so there's like this cabal of all these different kinds of versions. And Will had talked about how you can run when you're dealing with Satan. When he was a Satanist, you could run into Wiccans and they would be at a meeting, but they're not necessarily Satan worshipers. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Devil worshipers in the sense of they're worshiping Satan the way he was. You know what I'm saying? In the way that what he was a part of, which was this one of these cabals, Satanistic cabals, groups like the Order of the Nine Angels, the Temple of the Black Light, which is another one, and Wiccans, which all kind of and they all kind of there is no real necessary ruling body of Satanism, and I think that's kind of what the reality of this is. Unlike even well, I mean, you see this in Christianity too, though. It's very similar, I think, only just to a smaller scale. Is they're just a bunch of different sects and denominations that kind of believe slightly different things, but at the center of it all, it comes back to demon worship and demon, the which pretty much is there. There were only two religions really in the world. There was monotheism with the belief in one God, and then there was the pantheism, the belief in many gods. That, and there still to this day really is only that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so Satanism, theistic Satanism, all of these occultic, when it involves demon worship. We're not talking about the New Age chakra movement and the internal energy and God is everything, like the Force, where everybody is part of this one giant
Which
force.
is like panentheism.
Yes. This is not this. This is the belief that there are many spiritual beings that exist in the world and you can have access to these spiritual beings. And Satan is one of them. And to some degree, whether they may give him a different name, but they're all coming back to Satan. And the reality of it is he's a deceiver, and so he's deceived these people into believing certain things about him, and saying, "Oh, the
Right.
Judeo-Christian version." Well, they just don't have me down. There's even a show called Lucifer where he's an angel, fallen angel, and he's like, "I'm not really like what God says I'm about. I'm like," and he solves crimes. You know what I'm saying? It's like this is
Well,
stupid.
when you think about it, like Luciferianism, I don't know if you
Yes,
mentioned that one, where
I
they
didn't. Yeah, but
basically
that's
see
part of it.
Lucifer as a liberator, a
Yes.
guiding spirit of knowledge.
Yep.
Like the Gnostics were heavily influenced by that. But
Absolutely, they were. And
I mean, what is it? 2 Corinthians 11:14. Lucifer comes as an angel of light.
he's the light bearer.
Um,
That's what they. Yeah.
so we should really expect people to be, who are already deceived and in bondage to sin, to be
Right.
drawn to something like Lucifer. We're like, how are they drawn away by him? But really, Christians are a lot of times drawn away by him too.
Well, that the Bible says that even the elect will
Yeah,
be led astray because
yeah,
he's a master deceiver, and that's what he's doing to these people, and that's what he's doing now, even with Satanism, by making it. I was just watching another one, another show, the Mortal Instruments has a television show based on the book series. It was also a movie, and they get into a lot of this stuff too. Now, granted, the demons are bad, but it's always like they're not necessarily bad. They're just another group of beings that exist alongside of us that you don't necessarily see. Some of them are
yeah.
bad, some of them are good. No, they're all bad. There is no, Lucifer is not a hero. He's not going to help you out. He didn't come down here to. But see, again, they're based all of these. And one article I was reading said all of the Satanistic views, even Wiccanism, it all comes back to the idea that it's about the search of knowledge.
Right.
Which is what what he caused Eve to fall with, the knowledge of good and evil. God doesn't want you to have knowledge, and Lucifer brings you knowledge. It's from the very beginning that has been his lie. That is why I say that science worship falls into this category, because it's about the worship of knowledge and how Christianity and God is trying to hide knowledge from you. And they have this knowledge that God is trying to hide from you. And Lucifer has come to give it to you. This
What's
knowledge.
interesting is, yeah, that's point on, spot on.
Yeah,
It all started in the garden, really.
absolutely did.
That's a great point. And when we get into New Age next week, that'll be perfect. But
Yeah.
Steve Bancar's, the guy I was telling you about that wrote the book, and Josh Peck, his buddy, he talked about astral projection, which is where they basically have out of body experiences, and they go
Yeah.
and they practice through meditation, going out and they see things basically that sort of prove that they are coming out of their body.
Yeah.
Well, he said that he started seeing other spirit beings,
Oh,
this
yeah.
Josh Peck guy, and he said that he thought that they were all on his side pretty much. He
Right.
thought, so he went up and he would talk and interact, and then he said at one point they offered something, they offered help,
Right.
and he said nah, he said he just kind of turned it down, and
Sure.
then he said all hell broke loose, literally.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they were having demonic manifestations in his house. He had all these problems to where he finally turned to
Yeah.
Jesus. And but that's the thing. That's the thing about it, is he grew up in a Christian home. Both of them who wrote the book grew up in Christian homes, thinking that these spiritual beings that they're seeing, these demons they're interacting with, no, they don't want to harm you. the Bible
Right.
is wrong. They don't
Right.
want to harm you. They're actually very helpful, and they're
That's
giving you
right.
knowledge. They're
Or
suppre
there
all the
are some that are and some that aren't.
right, yeah, and the truth is they want to do exactly what they did to him, which is basically torment and
Absolutely.
destroy his life, rip apart
Absolutely.
his life. Um,
That's absolutely true. That's absolutely true. And you're seeing, and we'll get into this again next week, but with ghost worship, you see this sense of they're trying to find the supernatural because people are having supernatural experiences. And
oh
that's
yeah,
one of the
yeah,
problems with the church now is that we were like, there's a devil around every corner, and we were went so to one extreme with it that we just decided we're going to cut it out. Oh, we're not going to talk about
right.
spirituality, and we're not going to talk about the supernatural anymore. And yet, so we have no answer. I remember that's the one guy you were talking about because I was listening to his video, and he said Christians had no answer to me because they would just
Exactly.
say you're not really experiencing anything; it's all in your head, which is what science says. And
And
so
it's
it was like
kind
you
of
had, but they are experienced people. You have
right.
ghost shows all over the television, and internet, all over, and I like them. But these people are having actual spiritual, physical
Exactly.
manifestations, and we're telling them, well, it doesn't really happen. So they're
Well,
being swayed by psychics and mediums and Satanism and other types of Wiccans and other type of spirituality. So we're going to do sages and we're going to do cleansings because we're not giving them an answer anymore.
right.
We got no
Well,
answer.
that's spot on. And one thing that is brought up a lot is for example, alien encounters.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
one thing that there's been hundreds and hundreds of testimonies that the only thing that stops these encounters have been people crying out to Jesus.
Yeah, yeah,
That has stopped in hundreds and hundreds of cases.
yeah.
And so these people, they like you said, they're having real and legitimate spiritual experiences that we should take seriously, but we usually throw them aside as some fringe
Yeah.
thing. And now these
Well, we're afraid to
experiences are
talk about
demonic
it.
in
Yeah,
nature,
yeah.
but they are real,
But we're afraid
and
to
they
say
are
that.
self-deceived. Yeah,
Yeah,
they're self-deceived natural experiences. Um, they're delusions.
yeah,
That's what we usually say about them. But a lot of these things are really happening.
yeah,
And so it's kind of like if you tell me, oh, I was in love with this person, but
yeah.
this girl, but and then I just throw it off like, no, you weren't really in love with her.
Right.
Once I start saying that, you're like, no, I
I'm
know
going
what
to
I
shut you down.
experienced.
Yeah, I know what I
I know
experienced.
what I
Exactly.
experienced. You need to,
And
but
that's what we're doing.
that's basically how would you feel if somebody told you, no, you didn't have that experience. You didn't have this.
Right.
And the thing is, there's a biblical explanation
Yeah,
for
yeah, yeah.
all these things. But
Oh well, but see, here's part of the problem was back in the day, everything was. So when people genuinely needed help, we almost didn't get real help for them, because we were seeing a demon around every corner. So someone really did have, say, a chemical imbalance that they were bipolar, and we're like, no, you're just dealing with demons. And so we were trying to cure these demons, but they really needed medication. And because of that, now we're afraid to approach the supernatural. We're like, no, I'm not. We can't do it because we don't want to come across as kooky weird. No,
right,
this is real. This is real. That people are having real spiritual encounters, and our response is, well, we don't want to talk about it. No, we should be like, yeah, I can come in and cast the devil out of your house. I can.
right,
And we're afraid to go in and do it. So therefore, our faith isn't there. And then the demons are running us around and nothing's happening when we try to do it because we don't really believe, because we're so afraid to believe. Oh, well, we don't want to be kooky and we don't want to be weird because, the church isn't going to grow. There's a whole group. I mean, a whole group of thousands upon thousands of people out there that go on these ghost tours because they want to experience supernatural. Thousands of people that are having ghost experiences in their houses or see demons and they think they're ghosts, and they people that like actually do see ghosts, like in
yeah,
the Sixth Sense. I know I grew up with something similar to that in the demonic and the supernatural realm. People are having these experiences, and yet we just want to brush it under the rug because we're afraid to approach it, because we're afraid to come across as extreme. But if we don't have an answer for people, they are going to turn to Satanism, to Wiccans, to druidic leaders to the extreme Christian mystics that are way out there. Like voodooism is really a cult of Christianity, which is an extreme Christian mysticism that is based with mixed with a lot of what is the word, Catholicism mixed with African cultic stuff.
Yeah.
That's what it is. But yet people are turning to these people because Christians, we have Catholic exorcisms or extreme extreme Pentecostals who don't want to talk about it anymore. That's all we have to offer them anymore.
Well,
you
have in this age, right? You have in this age, the cult's message is basically come in and gain certainty about these things in an uncertain age.
That's right.
The age is uncertain, but come into the world of the occult, and here you'll find what the world cannot, or what the church rather cannot offer you.
Right, because we're not offering them anything supernatural anymore.
So here's secrets, mysterious, special knowledge, all these other things, and
yeah. Oh, and by the way, you can do whatever you want too. So we're going to let you do whatever you want. You want to cheat on your wife? Who cares? You know what I'm saying? You guys want to, do whatever. There's no moral code over here. So you can do whatever you want, but we offer you the secret knowledge that Christianity doesn't offer you. We can stop the demons from moving stuff around in your house at night. You know what I'm saying? We can stop that. But we don't offer any moral code either. When really...
And not only that, but one of the things that this guy Josh Peck, who read this book, one thing he talked about was he was having things happen at night, like sleep paralysis and all this other stuff.
I've had sleep paralysis.
And he said that while there is, medical things that might go in, or a doctor will explain it to him or whatever, he was having other things happen too.
That's right.
So what happened was he met another New Ager who basically gave him a book trying to help him.
Right.
And he went from having it once or twice a month to having it 3 or 4 times a week, and also getting into meditation and astral projection, which is really, really pretty crazy. But but that's the thing is when you turn it down, or you just say, oh, well, you just probably need to have some medicine, or they're going to find it somewhere or answer somewhere.
I mean, well, that's the scientific view. The reasonable, rational view is, oh, these are just hallucinations, and there's a medical view for it. And the church says, no, well, the church is both. We should understand that there are sometimes medical views. There are times when medical things are needed. But there is a supernatural component as well that we can't just throw out because we got a little extreme at times.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? We can't do that. We don't just throw it out because we were extreme.
Because
well,
the first thing that we should
more
do...
and more and more extreme. I mean, seriously, if they can fill 4 or 5 channels on just the Travel Channel alone of thousands of of experiences people are having in the supernatural, and you're telling me that we don't have any answer for that? Like, that's not real? You see what I'm saying? We can't do that. We can't.
Right.
It's just too much of it going on.
And when it comes to either experiences or even medical things, the first thing we should always do is go to God in prayer.
That's right.
And ask Him for wisdom.
It should be our first response.
And so, I mean, that should be the response, because right away you can't assume, like you said, you can't assume, oh, well, it's absolutely demonic, or it's absolutely a medical or chemical imbalance, or it's absolutely no, go to God. Don't make that the last thing that you do. Right. Because God says, if you ask me for wisdom, I'll give you wisdom.
Right. Well, it's like sleep paralysis. Yeah, I've experienced sleep paralysis. So there's one thing of sleep paralysis where you wake up and you can't move. It's another thing when you're having a dream, you wake up, you can't move, and there's a demon sitting on your top of you, or there's a demon in your room. That's not all of a sudden your dream changed. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't explain that kind of stuff away, or people are seeing the same thing, and their explanation is mass hysteria. It's mass hysteria. Everybody has these iconic, visions, and so we all see the same kind of thing. No, we don't. Everybody's seeing things that look like what ancient demons from 1,000 years ago. Pictures of ancient demons from 1,000 years ago, and that's what you're seeing sitting on your bed. And people are like, thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people are having the same vision. You can't explain that away. and say, well, it's mass hysteria. It doesn't make any sense. It's like saying, oh, the Salem witch trials, they were all just hallucinating, because there really was a lot of demonic stuff going on. So much so
Right.
that the people went crazy and started looking for witches because they didn't know what to do because they didn't have an understanding of the supernatural from a Christian standpoint. And so, because of that, they freaked out and they went out and tried to kill everybody who they thought was a witch. But the reality of it was there was a lot of supernatural stuff going on. But a lot of stuff like ghost hunters would have showed up. Now like if it was today, ghost hunters would have showed up. But no, the science explanation is mass hallucination due to rye bread. Really? Then why wasn't there
Right.
mass hallucination due to rye bread all sorts of other places? You know what I'm saying? It's stupid. It's stupid. No,
Yeah.
everybody's schizophrenic, or it's like you just want to explain everything away, and you have no explanation, so you're just going to explain it away because it makes you feel better at night because you don't want to deal with it until you encounter something that you have no answer for, that science
Right.
can't solve. And so, anyway, and that's where Satanism falls into because they start preying on this because when we don't have an answer, people start turning to these other things where
Exactly.
they will say, "Oh, we believe you because we understand. We've experienced stuff before, and we don't think you're crazy. We're not going to try to because people don't want to be stigmatized. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to be. If I told people when I was younger in today's world, if I was like 8, 9, telling people that I saw demons and stuff like that, now they would have said I was schizophrenic and put me on medication and stigmatized me for the rest of my life. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I even wrote about that as one of my characters in my book because I know that's what people would do today. Instead of genuinely accepting that they had a supernatural experience, which Satanists will do. Oh, we understand because or at least theological Satanists, not the atheistic Satanism. But yeah, because we understand you're just encountering a spirit. Maybe it's not Satan, maybe it's Bahamut, or maybe it's a Baal or whatever, but you're just experiencing a spiritual awakening. We accept that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so, and if it's getting evil and being mean to you, we'll find ways to cleanse you. You know what I'm saying? It's like we'll use some ancient ritual that didn't work back then and doesn't work now. You know what I'm saying?
Will empower you.
Will empower you. Yeah. Anyway, I think that was good.
Yeah, absolutely. The Braves are up 8-5.
Yeah, shut up. I was just checking. Last time I checked, it was 7-5. So, but anyway, hopefully you like this episode of the Christian Sages where we discuss Satanism. Next week, we're going to talk about the occult and the New Age and how not just what they believe or what kind of falls into that, but also how it's crept into the church, how it's crept into modern entertainment, and how through yoga, for instance, is one way that they've done it. That people are being indoctrinated by these ideas, and you're becoming desensitized to it. As always, you can look us up at thechristiansages.com, although I think the website's going to be down for about a month in September for some changes. But for now, you can contact us there at thechristiansages.com. You can find us on YouTube by typing in The Christian Sages, and we'll pop up. You can also contact us through email at thechristiansages@gmail.com. Hopefully, you guys have a great night. As always, click like on this video if you would. You can follow us. Please follow us. We haven't gotten a patron page up yet. We may, but we're not really looking to make money right now. It's more just for informational purposes. But
We'll
anyway,
send you candy.
we'll send you candy. So, yeah. Anyway, love you guys and have a great night.
Good night.
Good night.